David Jockers, and today we're talking about Body by God, true beauty in this generation. I've spoken at churches all around the country and spoken with many different pastors, many different men and women of God. And, one big thing that I see when it comes to health is a lot of pastors, a lot of people in the body of Christ, and a lot of spiritual believers in general just believe that taking care of our body is really something we do for a vain approach. And it's something we do if it's convenient, but it's not a necessity. It's not an act of worship. And so my goal with this presentation is really to teach you that taking care of our body truly can be an act of worship. In fact, I think it's one of the highest ways we can honor God. And so to get started here, if you don't know me, my name is Dr. David Jockers, and I speak at churches as well as organizations and conferences all around the country. I also speak in a lot of big online events, such as the Truth About Cancer, the Longevity and Anti-Aging Project, the Heal Your Gut Summit, as well as many other online conferences. And I am a natural health doctor that specializes in helping people overcome digestive problems, chronic disease, and improve their energy and quality of life. And this is my beautiful family, my wife, Angel, as well as my baby boys, Joshua and David. And we live right outside of Atlanta in a town called Kennesaw, Georgia. And so we've been living there now for years, and I love serving my community out there. So let's jump into this idea of Body by God. And also my clinic, actually I have a local clinic, Exodus Health Center. That's where we take care of people of all walks, of all different types of health conditions. I've got tremendous colleagues, Dr. Shannon Good, who specializes in pregnancy and pediatrics, and Dr. Andrew St. Bernard, who helps people get out of pain and works with athletes and all different types of individuals with corrective chiropractic care. And you can find our clinic website there, exodushc.com, and then my functional nutrition website, drjockers.com there as well. So here's what we have to understand. Several different things. Number one, in 1 John 4:4, it says, greater is the power that is in the world, or I'm sorry, greater is the power within thee that is in the world. Meaning that God put this incredible healing power within us. And so we have the ability to heal and to overcome sickness and disease and to rise up and be healthy. And when we look at our body, we know 1 Corinthians 6:19 says, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. And that's really the first thing we've got to understand, is that our body is not our own, that God gave us this incredible temple, this incredible gift with the human body, and that it is literally something we need to steward. Rick Warren, who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life, he has a great statement where he says, there's two big questions you've got to ask in our life. Number one is, do we accept salvation? Do we accept the gift that God gave us in salvation? And number two is, how do we steward the gifts he's given us? How are we stewarding all the talents and skills he's given us? How are we stewarding the great body that he's given us to house the spirit within? And in Romans 12:1, Paul says, I urge you, brothers, in light of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. So we're meant to be a living sacrifice. And he goes on, he says, holy and pleasing unto the Lord, for that is your true and proper form of worship. So he's saying that offering our bodies up as a living sacrifice is really the greatest form of worship that we can have for the Lord. And then he goes on in Romans 12:2, and he says, and do not conform to the patterns of this world. And so what are the patterns of this world when it comes to health? The patterns are we choose things based on what's easiest and most pleasing. And so what does that look like? So if it comes to nutrition, for example, what's easiest and most pleasing? It's fast food. And this is why we've got so much fast food. I mean, anywhere you go, any town you go into, there's fast food restaurants in every corner. Why? Because it's very easy, it's convenient, and it's pleasing to our sensations. They use a lot of different chemicals and flavor agents that are all really just processed, nothing found in nature, nothing that really is health benefiting to our bodies, but they use all these chemicals in order to please our senses. And that's basically what fast food is. It's easy and pleasing, and that's what we've done when it comes to our health. And what's the result of that? The result now is that heart disease affects 1 out of 2, that literally you have over a 42% chance of developing cancer in the course of your life. So 5 out of 6 in our society will develop heart disease and cancer. Diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia are through the roof. We've got 50% of our children, elementary school children, 50% are now being medicated. Many of them are being told they're going to be on those medications for the rest of their life. We're talking about asthma, allergies, ADHD medication, autism now is through the roof. And so we've got a chronic disease epidemic. And we have to look at that as this idea that in general, our society is making decisions when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to their health, out of what's easiest and most pleasing. It's the same thing with taking medications. Why do people end up taking medications? Number one is that's how they're taught, but also it's easier than making lifestyle changes. So it's easier to just take a medication to suppress a symptom than it is to make lifestyle changes. And you can notice oftentimes immediate benefit, meaning that if you have a headache and you take a pain medication, over-the-counter pain medication, that you have a good chance that the headache may immediately go away. So it pleases our sensations and it's easy, and that's why we do it. But what happens is long-term, it causes significant problems. And so instead of this idea of doing what's easiest and most pleasing, Paul goes on and he says, instead be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so our mind needs to be renewed. We need to see things and say, you know what? I can't make my health decisions and my life decisions off of what's easiest and most pleasing like the rest of the world, because in the end, that leads to suffering and it leads to death. But instead, what I need to do is ask myself, what's going to honor and please God the most? And if we make our decisions off of that, it's like, okay, I'm ready for lunch. I'm hungry. What's easiest and most pleasing for me in the moment versus what's going to honor God the most? What's going to please him the most? We're going to start putting in much better decision. We're going to start putting in nutrient-rich foods. We're going to start having more control and discipline over the foods that we consume. And ultimately, our life is going to be so much better because of that, because we'll have that mental discipline and we'll start to physically train our body to be stronger and healthier. So again, we got to be transformed by the renewing of our mind and start looking at what we can do to honor God with our bodies. And so at my clinic, we have this idea called the Exodus culture. And this idea that God created our bodies with an incredible ability to self-heal, that we literally have a new heart every 7 months. Isn't that amazing? We don't have to think about our heart rebuilding, but every cell is rebuilt in a 7-month period of time. Every 6 months, we have a new liver. Every 3 to 5 days, we have a new stomach lining. That God put this amazing healing power within us, and every moment of every day, it's doing everything it possibly can to adapt, detoxify, heal, regenerate, and repair the cells, tissues, and organs of our body. Again, this idea that greater is the power within than the power of the world. And so God put this incredible power within us. We can heal and repair. Our job is to seek after and follow the rules of life and health. There are rules, just like gravity is a rule, there are rules when it comes to taking proper care of our body. And what we know about health is that it's dynamic and it's ever changing. This idea that all of us have that as long as we don't have symptoms and we feel good, we're healthy, is actually very incorrect and very misleading. That health is something we're either building or we're losing every moment of every day. Every decision, we're either moving towards 100% life and healing at our optimal potential, or we're moving towards 0% life, which would be, of course, death. So we're moving towards sickness, suffering, disease, and death. We don't actually notice symptoms until we're healing at less than 60% of our potential in those particular regions. Less than 60%. So if you're out and you're dealing with headaches, neck pain, thyroid problems, if you've been diagnosed with a chronic disease, if you have health conditions, it's a sign that those regions are already healing and functioning at less than 60% of our potential. And you see how this is an uphill climb. It literally is. That when we first get started in life, our body has a lot better of an adaptive potential. but life itself is extremely stressful, and we've got more toxicity now than ever before. We're wading in it. So we've got literally life has a downward pressure on us, pushing us back towards 60% and back towards 0%. So we can't be passive when it comes to being healthy. We can't just say, I feel good, I'm healthy, that's it. I'm just going to do what's easiest and most convenient. And if it happens to be health benefiting, great. And if it's not, oh, well, I feel good. We can't have that mentality. We've got to have an active approach, a strategy to build health, because we've got this downward pressure, this downward momentum pushing us down this slope. And so look at this study right here, the American Red Cross. And this was published by the Environmental Working Group in July 2005. They examined the umbilical cord blood of 10 newborn babies. So you think about a newborn baby, you think it should be pure. But here's what they found. They found an average of 287 toxic chemicals, including methyl mercury, dioxins, and hormones. 180 of those chemicals were found to cause cancer. 217 were toxic to the brain, and 208 caused birth defects. So when we look at a child that develops cancer, leukemia at an early age, or autism, or has a congenital birth defect, many people lose their faith. They think, if God makes everything perfect, if God is so good, how can this 3-year-old child have leukemia? How can this 4-year-old have autism? How can this child over here have Down syndrome? Well, you know what? When we look at this study right here, it explains it, because 287 chemicals, that is a tremendous load of stress on the body. If we did this study 100 years ago, we would still have toxins, but it would probably be double digits, maybe 50, 60, 70 toxins in that baby. We had just gone through the Industrial Revolution. There was a lot of toxicity, but not anywhere near where we're at now. And if we went back 1,000 years ago, that number would probably be maybe 10 to 20. And if we went back 2,000 years ago, it'd probably be less than 10, maybe 5 to 8. So 2,000 years ago, when Jesus walked the planet, the newborn babies would have 5 to 8 chemical toxins in their body. Now we have 287 toxic chemicals in our body. So no wonder why we've got this epidemic of autism, children with allergies, children developing cancer, which is the fastest growing disease in that, and autism are the fastest growing diseases for children. And so this is why we're seeing this, because we've got such a toxic load in our society. That makes it even that much more important that we adopt healthy lifestyle principles, steward the body properly, so we can be healthy, and our children's children can take back control of their health. And so we've got to understand that food can be our medicine, and medicine can be our food. The food we put in our body can have a profound impact on our health. And most people agree with the idea that we are what we eat. Most people agree with that. And the squirrel, when he found that out, he realized he was nuts. And so for myself, I eat a lot of coconut and avocados. So I'd probably be a coconut or an avocado. So reality is we are what we eat, but we are also what we eat and absorb. You can eat food, but if you have a leaky gut and damage to your body's ability to digest food, you may not absorb the nutrients the way you're supposed to. So that's also a very critical finding. And so when we look at food, there's 2 major food groups that I break it down into. Number 1 is food by man. Food by man is processed foods. You can see the picture here, all the different types of processed foods. And so when we go and we get processed foods, Dunkin' Donuts, French fries, and we get all this kind of stuff, it's full of toxic chemicals. So there's lots of chemicals that they're putting in these foods. We talked about the fast food, loading it up with chemicals and food additives and preservatives in order to give it longer shelf life, in order to make it more pleasing. So we load our body up with toxins. It also has a slow transit time, meaning it doesn't move through our digestive system quickly. Therefore, it can rot and putrefy inside of our system. So the microbes get around it, they break it down, they ferment it, rot and putrefy it. So it releases even more chemicals into our body than it had originally when it first came in because of the putrefaction. This creates massive inflammation in our body, acidifies our bloodstream, which means that we're going to lose more minerals out of the other tissues of our body. That's going to cause us very low energy. And on top of that, this is going to blunt healthy hormone response. It's going to cause things like insulin, leptin resistance. It's going to cause problems with the thyroid, which ultimately are going to lead to promoting weight gain and fat deposits throughout our body. So very toxic stuff. We want to stay away from this. Instead, we want food by God. Food by God is natural foods, things that are grown in nature, non-processed, full of pure life energy, full of living waters, enzymes, and probiotics that really allow our body to rise and thrive. That's what we want. And when we look at blood, you can see here the blood on the left. These are healthy red blood cells, nice, smooth, and red blood cells bring oxygen to the cells of the body. So this is what we need: smooth, perfectly rounded, even in color. The plasma is clean and clear. Whereas when we have a high sugar processed food diet, it damages the different red blood cells. So now you can see these little jagged edges in a lot of the blood cells. These are called spherocytes, and they are not able to bring oxygen effectively to the cells. They're damaged and mutated. This is what happens when we have a junk food-based diet. So our body is electric. We have this flow of light energy that's going through us, literally at the speed of light. And so when we look at bringing more energy, high energy into our body, we've got to look at the voltage, the voltage potential of the foods that we're consuming. So ideally, to conduct this electrical flow of energy, the food we eat should have a vibrational frequency, should be about 40 to 70 megahertz, in that range, 40 to 70 megahertz. So when we look at something like a McDonald's burger here with French fries, or your typical fast food, we got to ask ourselves, is this going to provide 40 to 70 megahertz of energy, or is it not? And so when I do presentations, I always ask my clients, and they say, well, it's probably negative 20. And ultimately, it will have a negative effect, but in the interim, it's actually 3 to 7 megahertz. Where are they getting the 3 to 7? Probably the wilted lettuce and the year-old tomato, maybe the sesame seeds on there. But we take that in. Number one, it's not enough to sustain life. It's only 3 to 7 megahertz. But on top of that, it also, all the inflammatory damage, all the free radical damage that's created, or free radicals that are created through the digestive process, actually makes this even more energy draining on our body. So we want to avoid that. Instead, let's look at something that really powers up our energy. And that's going to be something like sprouts. Here you go. This is an example of a lentil sprout, over 150 megahertz. This gives us an energy surplus, which allows our body to heal, to function at a significantly higher level. So living lentil sprout, you can also do broccoli sprouts, kale sprouts, amazing foods. Now here's the good thing. I'm not going to tell you to just live on sprouts, although they are a great addition to a diet. But there's lots of really good things we can consume that are full of life-giving energy. And here are the basic nutrition rules. Number one, we reduce sugars and grains. Sugar and things that turn into sugar, like breads and grains, are highly inflammatory to our body. They're anti-nutrients. It takes more nutrition from our body in order to break down and metabolize these than they actually provide for our body. So when we consume that, they rob us of energy. So that's the first thing. Number two, we eat good fats. We eliminate bad fats. What are examples of good fats? Things like avocados, coconut, grass-fed butter, butter from grass-fed cows. When cows eat grass, they bioaccumulate a lot of light energy, which is stored in the grass. They also have tons of different nutrients, vitamin A and vitamin E and choline and all kinds of good stuff that comes out in their dairy, and particularly in their butter. So really good stuff. Also olives, olive oil, great fats. The bad fats are going to be things like corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil. These things are really, really toxic and bad for us. These processed, damaged vegetable fats, we want to stay away from those. Number three, change the meat that we eat. Again, this idea of staying away from conventional commercial raised animal products and going with grass-fed, pasture-raised, organic, natural animal products, wild-caught fish. This is what we want to stick with. Animals that were raised sustainably, animals that were raised healthy, those are going to provide the best meat and dairy for our bodies. So what does a typical American breakfast look like? You know, growing up, I used to eat cereal for breakfast, and that's still what's marketed and what most people are doing on a daily basis. And so my mom would never get the cereals I wanted, which were always the Captain Crunch or Fruit Loops or whatever I saw on TV. But instead, she would get what she thought was the healthiest cereal, which was Cheerios or Corn Flakes or Bran Flakes. So I would have that. We would have banana put on it because we thought bananas are really healthy. We'd have skim milk because we wanted to stay away from any sort of dairy fat. We wanted to stay away from that. So we do skim milk or like a soy milk or something along those lines. And then we would have orange juice because orange juice is loaded with vitamin C. So we would have that for breakfast. The problem is this is a very low fat, very high carbohydrate meal. And those carbohydrates break down into sugar. So my blood sugar would go way up. What would this do? This would increase inflammation in my body. And you can see Time Magazine came out, the secret killer, inflammation. So when I eat that, it massively jacked my blood sugar up. My body would start creating inflammation. And you can see that Time Magazine says inflammation is literally the underlying factor behind heart attacks, cancer, Alzheimer's. Really every chronic disease is related to chronic inflammation. So I was setting myself up for a terrible day and terrible physiology by consuming something like this in the morning. And then what would happen? My blood sugar would go way up, then it would go down, and I would feel tired. And so I'd want to take a nap when I was in school. I'd also be irritable, and I would have trouble paying attention. So fortunately, I never went to a doctor to diagnose me with this, but they probably would have diagnosed me with ADHD because I was all over the place, jittery. And then what would happen? I get to lunch, and what do we have typically in America for lunch? We have a sandwich, meat and bread. And so that combination, again, high carbohydrate, and on top of that, very tough on the digestive system because this is a combination of meat and bread, very tough on the digestive system. I'd deplete more enzymes. I'd be tired in the afternoon. So I'd hit a stimulant like an energy drink, or in our society, most people are going with coffee. And so we would just, again, stimulate our body. It's easy and pleasing. And then for dinner, we'd make it to dinner. For dinner, we're having pasta, pizza, something along those lines. And the whole time we're just creating chronic inflammation, spiraling out of control in our body. So instead of that, let's look at an anti-inflammatory type nutrition plan. And here's the good thing. So I've got a book, it's called Supercharge Healthy Recipe Book, and 180 recipes in there, things that taste amazing, like this key lime pie right here, these little key lime pies, blueberry coconut flakes. We've got our antidepressant meatballs because the nutrients in there help support healthy brain function. We've got our taco lettuce wraps. We've got our grain-free apple pie. I mean, there's so many great recipes in this book. And these are recipes that are made grain-free using natural sweetening agents, really real foods, and foods that provide a megadose of nutrition for our body. And so we look at a better flour to use because people will say, well, I really like bread. What do I use? Well, here's what I recommend is coconut flour. You can use almond flour as well, but coconut flour, in my opinion, is the best because it's very low carb, loaded with prebiotic fiber to help feed your good gut microflora, lots of really good fats, particularly types of fats that help to kill off candida and bad bacteria as well. And so you can make things like in our book, we've got a coconut flour bread, which you can see here down on the left, coconut flour cookies, coconut flour pizza crust. So we can make amazing recipes using something like coconut flour, which is absolutely incredible for the body. In fact, I also have a sugar detox program, which actually walks you through a full meal plan, how to convert your body from sugar burning and sugar craving into fat burning, and to, in a sense, reduce your cravings to help balance out your hormones so you can lose weight, improve your energy levels, and really just take back control of your life and your health. And so in the sugar detox program and what I teach in general, here is our food pyramid. You can see at the bottom, we've got those good fats, things like avocados, coconut, so coconut butter, coconut oil, coconut flakes. Coconut is amazing for the body, so we want to be using that. We talked about the coconut flour. Grass-fed butter, also organic eggs or pasture-raised eggs, amazing for the body. Then right above that, we've got the antioxidant category. So these things help reduce inflammation in our body. So we want lots of non-starchy vegetables. So these are vegetables that don't turn into sugar. Things like cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, collard greens, kale, celery, cucumbers, all types of things like that. Amazing for the body. We also want a lot of herbs. Herbs are underutilized in Western society, but herbs are amazing. So herbs, what do we want? Turmeric, ginger, basil, oregano, thyme, cinnamon. Many of these things are aromatic. They have a very, very good smell. They make the food actually taste a lot better, and they provide a lot of antioxidant nutrients for the body. We also want low glycemic fruit. This is low sugar fruit. So I was drinking orange juice thinking it was really healthy. Unfortunately, orange juice is really just sugar because they've taken out the fiber. And so I get very little nutrients. I consider it more of an anti-nutrient because even though it does have vitamin C, all the sugar that's coming into my system, I need to use up more nutrition than it's bringing in just for my body to buffer and adapt to the sugar content. So we want low sugar fruit, berries, lemons, limes. These things are good. Granny Smith or green apples. In years past, our ancestors were consuming more sour fruits than we are today. Today, fruit has been hybridized to where it has a lot higher sugar content. We want fruit that's more natural, more of a sour flavor. That sourness can be really good for our gut microbiome. Clean protein. So this, again, we were talking about wild-caught fish, grass-fed beef, organic pasture-raised eggs, really good stuff like that. Fiber. So we're going to get fiber from our non-starchy vegetables, but also nuts and seeds can be great. So getting a lot of good nuts, seeds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, pecans, macadamia nuts, Brazil nuts, all really good. Fermented foods. So every culture around the world is using fermented foods. They've used it forever up until the advent of refrigeration. And now we've lost the desire for fermented foods. But what are fermented foods? Things like apple cider vinegar, coconut water kefir, kimchi, pickles, sauerkraut. These things are amazing for the body, and we want to be utilizing these on a regular basis. I recommend using them with dinner on a regular basis. Natural sweeteners, so stevia, raw honey, xylitol, which is a sugar alcohol that's found in nature, so made typically from birch. And so xylitol can be good. If you have digestive complaints with it, like I often do, then I would avoid it. I prefer stevia. It's my favorite sweetener, but also using raw honey, monk fruit, which is also called lohan extract. Some of these other sweeteners can be good in moderation. So that's our food pyramid right there. This is the kind of diet we want to be having. And so we have to understand as we go through this is that God has placed, we've been talking about this, God has placed tremendous self-healing mechanisms in our body. And so it's not the physician, not the surgeon, not the prescription drug, or even the nutrient that cures. It's not an avocado that cures our body, even though we say use food as medicine. These things, they only act to support or in detriment to the body's God-given ability to heal itself. So it's really about your body's ability to heal and regulate itself. That's really what it's all about. And all the healing comes from the brain, travels down the spinal cord over the nerve system at the speed of light, coordinating all function in our body. We make over 100 billion new cells every single day of our lives. Unbelievable when we really think about the healing process. So it's constantly healing. And so here's the thing. If we came in and we cut the nerve to the heart, what would happen to the heart? It would die. It's like cutting a wire to a light bulb. If there's no power, here's the thing. If instead of cutting a nerve, let's just say a bone shifts and puts pressure on the nerve. If we have bad posture and we have pressure on the nerve system, it's called subluxation. And that word, sub means less than, luxation means light. Quit light. So we are light energy. When there's interference in our nerve system, a bone shifts, we have bad posture, and there's pressure on the nerves, we get less than adequate light energy getting into our organ systems. That right there, regulating our body's ability to heal. That is a root cause factor when it comes to developing chronic disease. This is what we specialize in looking at in my clinic, is really analyzing in detail what's happening throughout the nervous system. And you can see the scan on the left, we've got optimal symmetry. These bars should be white. They're at their optimal symmetry, optimal range. And so everything looks good and strong. It's normal optimal function. Whereas this person on the right has significant stress in their nerve system. You can see that huge red bar right at C1. That's most likely where the area that's primarily blocked. They probably have poor posture throughout. They've got red bars. They got a black bar down there at T10. And it ranges. Black is actually the worst bar. Red, blue, right after that, and then green, which is just one standard deviation away from normal. So this person has significant stress in their neurology. Their body's not going to be able to heal effectively. We want to make sure our body is healing at its optimal level, like that person right there on the left. That's where we want to be. And so this is what we specialize in, again, at my clinic, Exodus Health Center. And if you're in the Atlanta area, we are in Kennesaw in Cobb County, and we would love to see you. We'd love to do a consult and look in detail at your health complaints, your health goals, and try to figure out the best plan of action to help you get well. We'll also do a digital nerve scan to help understand what's happening in your neurology. And again, if you want that, you can call my office, 770-420-0492, or look us up on our website, exodushc.com. If you are around the world, then I want to invite you to look at my website, drjockers.com. That's my functional nutrition website, where we've got tremendous amount of information on every different health topic. So you can find a ton of stuff right there to help you really take back control of your life and your health. And so ultimately, what this all comes down to is having a great purpose for our life and living a truly inspired life. I know that God put us all on the planet for a very important reason. He didn't put us on the planet to suffer and to, in a sense, just go about our day and settle for mediocrity. He put us on the planet to have a high purpose and to live inspired, in spirit, on a daily basis. And ultimately, in order to do that, we've got to take on this mentality that we can't just make decisions based on what everybody else in society is doing. This idea of making decisions when it comes to our health based on what's easiest and most pleasing. But instead, we need to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, that we need to honor God with our bodies, make good health decisions so we can have the energy, mental clarity, and the quality of life that we deserve. And so we can go out and truly be a light to the world. That our body, we are called to lay down our body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing unto the Lord. And so when we're faced with challenges in our life, when we're faced with this idea of, hey, I'm going to have to spend more time and more money preparing my food, we just give that right back to God. And we say, you know what, Lord? I know that you created my body and that my body is yours. And I'm laying it down as a sacrifice. And Father, I may not have the time or the money, but I know that you can magnify what I do have. And that I'm going to spend more and inconvenience myself in order to be healthy and well. And I know that you're going to bless that. That ultimately, God, I'm offering it up as an act of worship to you. And when we make that, when we start to shift that thought and give that back up as an act of worship, it's amazing what happens. It gives us peace. And we start to realize that these strategies are unbelievable. And they have incredible, infinite value beyond the dollar amount that we're going to spend on healthy food and working with possibly functional health practitioners in order to get well. So this is really what it's about. And ultimately, it's about this, that we are created to be a light of the world, and we are created to go out and to spread that light. And you know what? When we're sick, when we're suffering, when we're dependent upon medications, when we're not taking good care of our body, it is very hard to shine that light. But when we start to honor God with our bodies, the light naturally comes out of us. It naturally comes out, and we can't be hidden, and we're able to go out and make a huge difference in the people's lives that we're around. We all have a circle of influence, and our job is to be a light to the people that we're in influence with, our family members, our friends, our coworkers, the people at our church, the people that we come into contact on a regular basis. When we honor our body, honor God with our bodies, and steward our body properly, we're allowing that light to shine super bright for the whole world to see. So my hope and my prayer is that this presentation really inspired you to take back control of your health, to honor God with your body, and to truly be a light to the world. God bless you. This has been Dr. Jockers.